So my male 29, wife 27, has been a stay-at-home mother since the pandemic began. She lost her job because of the global issue, and given that we were stuck at home most of the time, we decided that it was better for us to fire our housekeeper and have her be a stay-at-home mom, at least until the kids, young grammar school female, preschool male, toddler male, were a little older. And it's mostly been fine. We split chores around 40% me, 60% her. She does most of the daily household work, and I take over when I get home, except on weekends, when we either work together or one of us relaxes. The thing is, I gave her free rein on the monthly financials of the household. We thought she spent most of the time buying things for the family. She'd know best what to buy, how, and when, and it would be a waste of time to discuss every purchase or financial decision. And that was fine as well, until about 4 months ago, when I noticed some discrepancies. I began noticing a bunch of $49.99 or $99.99 purchases. Initially, I didn't pay them any mind, but over time, there were more and more. So eventually, I did a little digging, checked who the purchases were made to, and tracked how often, looked at what my wife does in her free time. Long story short, over just the last 2 months, she spent $10K on gotcha games. Look, I'm not ridiculous. I understand people have hobbies that can require expensive purchases. I spend $200 on video games every month, but $10K in 2 months on gotcha games? Games specifically designed to keep you paying and paying. I consider it a real problem. So I confronted her. I told her that I'm not giving her a blank check anymore, not unless she seeks professional help. I told her that I called our old housekeeper and she'll start working with us again this month to help her with the kids. She said it's not that big of a deal because we can afford it. I told her yes, we can afford it for now, but it's a dangerous game she's playing and she needs help. I told her the housekeeper would have to approve the financial decisions in the household together with her. Then she called me an idiot and said that I was financially controlling her because I was the only source of income in that household. Am I the idiot for not giving my stay-at-home wife any more money until she seeks help? $10K in 2 months? Impressive. Not the idiot. This isn't about being financially controlling. It's being responsible with money. Her argument that you can afford it is honestly terrifying. She spent $10K in 2 months on basically nothing at all? Nothing. It's not even gambling in the sense that she could have won something. She just spent it on digital nothingness. And if she keeps it up at that pace, you're not going to be able to afford it. You could lose your house, your savings. You could end up in some kind of debt you can't dig your way out of. She needs therapy. Yeah, I'll bet she didn't even realize it had gotten to that extent. Your wife has a problem, one that could potentially create significant problems for your family. Do you know if she was doing that with the money she earned before? Personally, I think she should go back to work to pay off her gaming addiction without a housekeeper. Given that you've already rehired the housekeeper, you should still expect better accountability. Start with paying the housekeeper's salary with her earnings. You are the idiot because this housekeeper thing is insane. Overall, I'm on board with this post, but you cannot put this on your housekeeper. She cleans houses. It's not her job to be a financial babysitter for your wife's app store addictions, and you're putting her in a terrible position by expecting this of her. It sets up an innocent worker to bear the brunt of your wife's abuse and insult when you're not around. Agreed. This took a wild turn. Why would your housekeeper be an appropriate person for this at all? Really? You need to have a conversation with your wife about it and why she's doing it. Did she know she spent that much? Is it an addiction? Is it depression? Do you actually just make enough money that it doesn't matter? Is she financially literate? Does she have some kind of financial trauma that makes budgeting hard or impossible, and it just became relevant when she got into these games? From there, you can look into counselors or therapists, but suddenly and without warning, cutting her off and setting up a gatekeeper a la your housekeeper, truly sucks. My friend and his wife just bought their first home. It's a fixer-upper, and I've been helping them out with the fixing. My father was a handyman and contractor, so I have a lot of skills and experience doing maintenance, repairs, and upgrades on a house. I also have the tools I need to do most of the work. This last weekend, I was helping paint the dining room. I had everything set up the way I wanted, and I was ready to go. For some reason, his wife decides to let their dogs into the room I'm painting. One steps into the roller tray and then jumps on me. His wife laughed it off like it wasn't a big deal that I now had paw prints on me. I also had to throw out that primer because it had mud in it now. I had told them both to let me do the work in peace. After I prepared a new tray of paint, I wrote curse words in huge letters on the wall in primer. For those of you who may not know, primer is the coat of paint that you put down before the actual paint. For lack of a better word, it sticks to the wall better, and when it dries, it creates a better surface for the paint to stick to. His wife saw it and freaked. She said I was drawing profanity in her house. I told her it was primer and to stay out of my way. I then finished the job and went home. My friend called me and said that I had really upset his wife with my childishness and that she wouldn't let me back until I apologized. I asked him what I was apologizing for. He said that I wrote a curse word on his wall. I asked him to provide a picture. He said he couldn't since I had painted over it. I asked what the problem was then, since the word wasn't there anymore. He said that I needed to apologize. I said that his wanting me to apologize was in no way the same as my needing to apologize. He said that I could not come back until I did. No problem for me. I was helping him for free on my weeks off from work. He called me 2 days later and asked if I was coming to finish painting since I would be away at work for 3 weeks. I said I wasn't ready to apologize yet, and maybe I would when I got back. I probably won't. Now she's telling everyone that I'm a crappy person for leaving a job half finished. I told everyone who asked that I was working for free and that they told me not to return. Now there's a big fight in our friend group between the people who think I should keep the peace and those who think she's an entitled whiner. No one else is volunteering to help at their house, and now they either have to do half the job or pay someone. I'm getting grief for that too. Am I the idiot? OMG, not the idiot. Oh, what a scary threat. You can't come back and work for free on your days off unless you apologize? Well, gosh, can't I? Guess I'll just have to watch TV then. If they want you to come back and paint their stupid fixer-upper for free, then they can suck it up and be grateful. Do not act like their highness are doing you a favor by letting you paint on your time off from work. Oh, thank you so much for letting me work for free. They would have been charged extra if they hired a professional after the dog incident. And hey, the professional may never come back the next day because they have other projects and will get to their highness later. You wrote that on the wall because you're being taken advantage of in this friendship. Honestly, I would have packed up and walked out after the dog incident. My husband, 26, and I, 25 female, have a young boy. After the first month or so, I took on full responsibility for night feeds. This makes sense since I'm exclusively breastfeeding, and I think there's no reason why we both have to have our sleep interrupted when there's not much my husband can add to that equation. To compensate, my husband usually takes the baby in early mornings with a pumped bottle of milk so I can get a few extra hours of sleep. Although this arrangement does work, the lack of sleep has been taking a toll on my mental health recently. In addition, although my husband is a great and very present dad 99% of the time, there have been multiple occasions very recently in which I felt I'm being treated as the default parent. He's agreed that he needs to be more considerate about automatically assuming that I'll take care of the baby if he wants or needs to do something else. This morning I was particularly exhausted after a difficult night and told my husband I was at my limit and needed a serious break for a few hours. He said no problem. However, about half an hour later, he told me he was going to the gym with his friends and would be back in a few hours. I immediately got very upset and said I couldn't believe he was saying this after the conversation we had just had. He said going to the gym was important for his mental and physical health, so he needed to go. I said I really, really needed a break now and asked if he could at least go later, e.g. in the evening, so I could get a proper break first. He said I needed to be more flexible, that he would take over taking care of the baby as soon as he was home, and that I could just rely on his mother to help out for a few hours. We live with my in-laws and went anyway. I feel very unsupported and alone. His mother is very helpful, but she has her own responsibilities, and I can't exactly ask her to contact nap with the baby for 3 hours while I relax and unwind. I appreciate that mental and physical health are important for new dads and new moms. So am I the idiot for wanting my husband to delay his workout for my benefit? You weren't forbidding him from going to the gym completely, just asking him to go at a time that worked better for the family. Honestly, all this stuff about his mental and physical health is irrelevant in this situation. There were several options to get his gym time in and not shaft you on sleep, and he chose none of them because he assumed you'd pick up his slack. Not cool. Not the idiot, and your husband needs to step up. Husband can suck on it, needing this for his mental and physical health. He's getting a full night of sleep each night because his angel of a wife is willing to take on the full burden of sleep deprivation for 9 solid weeks. Sleep deprivation is categorized as torture. She is willing to undergo torture for him so he can sleep at night, and he somehow thinks his mental and physical health comes before hers? That's a flaming pile of selfish BS. He's treating her as the default parent and thinks he can get cookies for putting in any effort. His job should be to take care of the baby, solo, for at least 5 hours a day, so she can get a solid chunk of sleep before she gets too exhausted and drops the baby. I don't think he's aware that he's the father of that child and that his responsibilities and priorities changed the second that child was born. He absolutely sees you as the default parent and is not pulling his weight. He needs to step up and grow up. Obviously, not my decision, but I wouldn't recommend having any more children with him unless he can prove he can be a good father and a good partner. Until that, you're a married single mother, love. I, female 28, have a 2-story house I own. I live in the upper level and rent out the lower floor to people I know personally. One of my rules is not renting to people with kids or pets, primarily dogs, or musicians. It's to avoid noise, destruction of property, and any intrusion into my private space. I know many people who are cool with this, and I rent to them. My rent is usually cheaper too, because I prefer a good tenant over more profit, so it's constantly rented. Anyways, a few months back, my then tenant had to move for a job. This created a vacancy, and I told a few people I knew loved my home space. The sister of one of said friends overheard them discussing the low rent of my property with their spouse and got my number from them. She asked if she could have this home. The issue is that she has 3 kids under 10. She was begging on the phone because apparently her lease was up on her last home. She couldn't afford to renew or get any other place since her partner left them high and dry, etc. I told her I'd already promised another friend and there was no vacancy. I hadn't made any such promise and said that because 1, didn't want to have 3 kids in my home, and 2, did not trust her to pay rent. She begged more, saying she needed the apartment more since she had kids. I told her sorry, no, and left that conversation. I rented it to a couple soon after and forgot all about this. Last week I saw my friend, whose sister had called. When the conversation about home came up, I told him his sister had called. He grimaced, saying she had coerced him to give him my number. I said it was fine and casually asked if she had found a place. He said she did, but it was in a very unsafe neighborhood and very poor living conditions, a studio flat at that. His wife, who was with him, said I was an idiot for not renting my home to her. Am I the idiot? I needed more because I have kids, and there she just showed you exactly what kind of tenant she would be, and why you were completely right in saying no vacancy. Not the idiot, Just make sure everything you do follows your laws and regulations. I don't want to live with kids either, and you're right. She likely wouldn't have been able to pay rent, and it would have been a nightmare. Or you would have been the babysitter and forced to call authorities. She sounds like the entitled type, too. Exactly. The woman made it clear she had financial issues, and while I sympathize with her predicament, kids do take a toll on the property, and they can be very noisy. It wouldn't be fair on OP to live in a potentially noisy home with a tenant who's very likely unable to pay the rent. I hope the woman is able to get a good amount of child support from her ex so she can move someplace safe. His wife, who was with him, said I was an idiot for not renting my home to her. I'm petty, so I would have been like, so are you an idiot for not giving them a safer space since it's your family and not mine? People love to spend others' money, use their time, and offer their resources. Part of why you have lower rent is because you have conditions. There's always someone willing to complain and moan about what you should have done to help someone else out, seemingly, especially when the person who needs help is one of their relatives or friends or acquaintances who, for whatever reason, they've chosen not to help. If you won't, then don't come complain to me. By the way, every single mom I've ever rented to has a deadbeat boyfriend waiting to move in. My 31 male, oldest kid, is my wife's biological son that I adopted. Last year, his school recommended he be assessed for a neurological disability. The process of finding a specialist that our insurance will work with has taken a long time. This specialist wants a lot of medical background information on our son. My wife only has her medical background information, which she provided. The specialist said this wasn't sufficient. I found your ex on Facebook, and I messaged him to ask for his family's medical history. I explained why. He immediately blocked me. I found his sister on Facebook after that and sent a similar request. She said she would get me the information. We exchanged emails about this. I got an email from the guy telling me to stay away from him and his family, or he'll sue me. I told the guy I was just trying to find out the information I needed, and that if he wasn't willing to help me, I would explore other avenues. He called me an entitled idiot and said I had no right to his personal information. He said scum like me is the lowest of the low. I have, however, continued to email his sister despite his objections. Am I the idiot here? Sure, it's his personal information, but it's my son's personal information too, and he needs it. Could I actually be in the wrong? Not the idiot. Your wife should have handled it, but you're not an idiot for doing right by your child. X is not obligated to provide anything. I'm curious about the specialist. Have they never heard of adoption before? What do they mean by insufficient? Not everyone has access to both biological parents' family's medical background. I find it hard to believe that they wouldn't complete the testing because bio-dad's an idiot. I would agree with this if the child were his stepson, but he's OP's adopted son, and OP and mom are equally responsible for and entitled to information about the son. Of course, the specialist knows about adoption, but when you may have a heritable condition, it greatly impacts what they test for and what they can rule out. They don't refuse to run the test if you don't have your full background. It is more difficult and often more expensive to make a diagnosis with less information available. LOL, that guy is a disgrace for refusing to provide medical history that could help his child. He abandoned his child as a newborn and now calls you the lowest of the low for asking about medical info? Sounds like a real winner. I'm not sure why so many people don't get why your wife doesn't want to talk to this man. It's pretty obvious to me. Thank you for stepping up for your kid. You're awesome. My mother, 36, is pregnant. My parents hadn't even told me, nearly adult female, or anyone else at dinner time. I had just figured it out based on their recent strange behavior, my dad rubbing my mom's belly while they thought I wasn't paying attention. My mom browsing for baby stuff on Amazon, thinking she's slick, but she's not. Anyway, I was upset that they decided to have a kid after all this time. Having a sibling almost 18 years younger than me will be embarrassing. I was also upset that they didn't even tell me. During family dinner with my dad's side of the family, grandparents plus aunt and uncle, I made some passive-aggressive remarks about us having to move to a bigger house soon, and also tried to push their buttons by saying they would be empty nesters soon, since I'm an only child. Finally, I just outright told my mom to announce how they were having another child after all these years, and told my grandpa that they would probably give away my room to the baby, since I was going to move out for college soon, and that they clearly planned this well. Everyone was shocked, including my parents who thought I had no clue. My mom admitted she was pregnant, but she said that they were waiting to tell people until she was further along. My grandparents were shocked but seemed supportive, which was a bit unexpected. After everyone left, my parents ganged up on me and told me it was not my news to share, and that they were only waiting for my mother to be further along to tell me and everyone else at their own pace. I don't really care. I understand it's not my news to share, but I will be affected by this huge change in my life. My parents are really upset with me and are unhappy that I shared the news and forced them to tell my mother's side of the family too. I don't see what the big deal is anyway. They had to eventually tell people even if they did end up having a miscarriage. I mean, it would help them cope better too. Am I the idiot? Poor me. I'm someone who's going to be affected by this huge change in my life. How? You're almost adult and moving out for college. It sounds like this is not going to affect you at all. You are the idiot, and being a brat. I hope your mom has twins. Yeah, it is standard protocol for people not to share the news until after 3 months, especially considering your mother will be a high-risk pregnancy, and it doesn't matter how long they wanted to wait to tell people, because it's none of your business. Oh, it will affect her all right. She suddenly won't be the center of her parents' universe anymore, the poor dear. I remember being so worried when my mom was pregnant. I thought she had cancer, and then when I knew she was pregnant and she fell down a few stairs, I was convinced something bad had happened. I was stressed, and I was 12. What an insensitive thing to throw out there about her mom. She's old enough to have basic empathy, or to let it come before her jealousy. Just think, if something goes wrong, now your mom will have to go through the pain of publicly telling people about the loss. Your attitude here is pretty crappy and selfish. You're basically an adult. All of these impacts on your life seem pretty superficial. It seems that as an only child, you've thought the world revolves around you. Stop being so selfish and enjoy having another member of your family. It's a gift to have someone to grow up around. You better make your peace with not being an only child now. Women as old as your mom still get pregnant. Women as old as your mom? Geez, mom is 36. That's not too old to have a baby. If mom was 46, I'd understand the shock. But 36 is really not weird or old. My God, listen to yourself, OP. You're the idiot, completely unempathetic, and your behavior and comments are needlessly nasty. Also, I'd like to know how you thought your mother was slick, researching baby products. What in the world is wrong with you? Grow up. So I'm in a bit of a pickle here. I, female 25, have a niece, Lexi, teen. Lexi and I have a fairly close relationship, and I often take her places. I have a girlfriend, Holly, 27. We've been in a long-distance relationship for 3 years, as Holly lives on the other side of the country. 2 months ago, Holly moved in with me, and we couldn't be happier. It was a big change for Holly, and homesickness hit her sometimes, but we're excited to finally build a life together. Ever since Holly moved in with me, and we've been spending time together, Lexi has been jealous of her. I still make time for Lexi, and usually see her every other weekend. I think my sister Beth, 30, is encouraging Lexi's jealousy and making it worse. Whenever I meet up with them or invite them over, Beth will make passive-aggressive comments like, "I thought you forgot about us," or "You must never have time for Lexi anymore," and pass it off as a joke and laugh. Lexi's been acting really weird around Holly, and last weekend when we all met up to grab some dinner, Lexi was making rude, passive-aggressive comments towards Holly the whole time and passing them off as jokes, implying that no one in the family likes her, she's ugly, stupid, etc. Of course, Beth was laughing and smiling at Lexi whenever she said these things. After the dinner, I spoke to Lexi in private and told her that her behavior was out of line and that she needed to apologize to Holly. I told her that she's allowed not to like Holly. Not everyone likes everyone, but she still has to be nice to her, and the things she said were hurtful and not okay. Lexi started crying and accused me of replacing her. I told her I still love her and that she'll always be my niece and part of the family, but Holly's also important to me. Lexi kind of shut down and stopped listening to anything I was saying and went to go find Beth. She was wailing and told Beth that I've been lecturing her and forcing her to like Holly, and said that I'm abandoning her. Beth was comforting Lexi, and I asked Beth if we could talk about this privately in a few minutes. Then Beth told me that I'm being a horrible aunt to Lexi, that kids don't like change, and that I needed to understand that. She said I needed to be more compassionate to my niece. I told her that I wasn't doing anything wrong by spending time with my partner and expecting her to be respected. Beth told me I was missing the point and that Lexi's just acting her age and I need to have a more loving approach. I told Beth that she was teaching her daughter that being emotionally manipulative would get her what she wanted and that I wouldn't participate. Beth went off about how I'm being cold-hearted and that I'm blowing everything out of proportion and alienating Lexi. Everything hasn't been quite the same since that incident, and I'm left feeling confused and all kinds of mixed feelings. But ultimately, I think I was right. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. You were well within your rights to expect Lexi to treat your girlfriend respectfully. Beth isn't just teaching her daughter to be emotionally manipulative. She's also teaching her to be rude and entitled when she doesn't get her way. The way they're behaving all but guarantees you'll see less of Lexi, not more. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that Beth will inevitably blame you for. It's an unfortunate situation, but not one for which you're responsible. Honestly, if anyone insulted my partner at dinner by implying or joking that no one likes her, she's ugly, etc., it would have been game on right at the table. Your niece and sis are massive idiots. You deserve to be happy with your partner, and it should be a thing where your whole family's growing, not being exclusionary or jealous. If Lexi were to be patient with your honeymoon period, she'd see now she has 2 aunts instead of just 1. But the way she's going to get the opposite outcome than she desires. She's way too old to be pulling this crap. She sounds like she could be 8, not a soon-to-be adult. Yes, I thought I'd misread, and that Lexi was 5 and not a teen. Also, Lexi is a mid-teen and Beth is 30, which means Beth had Lexi at 15. I'm not surprised both of them are emotionally immature. So when you say they both take issue with anything in your life that they perceive as taking attention away from them, it's probably pretty accurate, as it sounds like there's a reason OP is leaned on so much. My 28 female, sister 32, lost her husband of 3 years to cancer 4 years ago. Before he died, he was very clear that he wanted her to move on and be happy, instead of wasting the rest of her life as a single widow. My sister promised to try and did to some extent. About 6 months after my brother-in-law died, she started trying to date, but found it really hard. I tried gently to explain to her that it was all right to move on and that she wasn't betraying anybody, but she never went beyond any first dates with guys she saw for the next few months. After that, she stopped for about 3 years, which was really concerning. I tried to set her up with some guys I knew, but that never went anywhere. Then about a month ago, she was seeing this really nice guy, but she broke it off after 3 dates, since she didn't feel right. I asked her why she was being like this. At this point, it's been plenty of time to move on, and she isn't doing herself any favors by being single, and her husband was very clear about wanting to move on. She said that she just felt uncomfortable dating again, to which I said she had no reason to. At this point, she got angry at me and told me to mind my business. I told her that she was my sister, and I was just looking out for her. I also told her she was disrespecting her late husband's memories, and that he would probably be ashamed of her for not living her life to the fullest. She left and hasn't spoken to me since. You are the idiot. She might never want to be with anyone else, and that's okay. Also, he primarily wanted her to be happy, so he wouldn't want her to force herself into situations that made her uncomfortable. Being single isn't wasting her life if that's what she wants. Forcing herself into a lackluster relationship for some misguided narrative of moving on would be wasting her life. It's baffling that people who choose to live single are told they aren't living life to the fullest because they live differently than most. It's astounding to me that someone would be told this while they're still grieving a partner who passed away. Everyone needs to mind their own business. OP, mind your business and try to have some empathy. What is wrong with you? You should be ashamed of yourself. She's right. Mind your own business. Just because her husband said he wanted her to move on doesn't mean she has to do it right now. She can still do it on her own timeline, or not at all, if that's what she chooses. The man's dead. In reality, his last wishes don't really mean anything. The fact that you're using her dead husband to try to guilt her into doing things on your timetable is, quite frankly, disgusting. Yep, you should be ashamed of yourself. Your comments were cruel and possibly counterproductive. Healing is not linear. Also, dating is not healing. Also, she's doing herself no favors by being single. This isn't the 1950s. She can get her own credit card and bank account. She doesn't need a man to sign for her. She'll be just fine. Find some compassion and apologize to her ASAP. Yeah, OP to sister, you're nobody unless you're Mrs. Somebody. It's nice to know that you think a woman can't live her life to the fullest unless she's in a relationship. Doesn't seem like you're looking out for your sister. You're looking out for yourself based on what you think she and all women should do. I, female 28, am getting married to a pretty great guy, 32. He's a teacher and he's very happy with his decision to become a teacher. I work for a tech company and we do pretty well financially. We've been together for 4 years and have finally decided to get married. His parents are happy and mine are overjoyed. One small wrinkle is that my parents expect us to have a massive church wedding with a few hundred guests. We were thinking of Jamaica this summer during his time off. We're willing to do what my parents want, but I am unwilling to foot the bill. My mom and I met with a wedding planner for an estimate of $35,000 to $45,000. If we go to the resort we picked out, it would likely cost $10,000, and that includes paying for his parents and nephew to join us. My parents know how much money I earn and insist I pay for this wedding myself. We've been very clear. They can pay for it if they want to show off to their friends. We even volunteered to throw in the money we would have spent on my in-laws for the destination wedding we wanted. My mom says I'm being an idiot by denying her the chance to see her only daughter married in front of friends and family. I'm not. I'm just not willing to pay for it. My parents can afford to pay for the wedding. It might just mean putting off replacing their car this year. So, am I the idiot for telling my parents that they have to pay for my wedding? Not the idiot. If they want a $40,000 wedding, then they pay for it. Otherwise, stick to your $10,000 plan. In fact, do that anyway. That's what you and your partner want, and this is your wedding. I highly recommend doing what you want instead. My husband and I ran off to Hawaii to get married right after the global restrictions lifted and snagged some great deals. But even aside from that, it's what we wanted. We both love our families and friends dearly. Nobody was invited because we wanted it to be just us. We had a happier wedding than most. Nothing against big weddings. We just skipped 98% of the headache that comes with them. So just go do what you want. You'll have a much better day. Honestly, the audacity of your mother to expect a wedding you don't want and not pay for it is astounding. You don't want that wedding. She does. You want to go to Jamaica. It's your money. Mom doesn't get to tell you how to spend it. Best wishes on your upcoming Jamaican wedding or honeymoon. Mom either comes to the wedding or doesn't. No one's entitled to a wedding on someone else's dime. My father got my mom pregnant during university. She didn't want me, and my grandparents did. So I grew up with my grandparents raising me. They did their best, but I'm definitely a handful, and they had trouble keeping up. I wasn't a bad kid or anything. I just had a lot of energy, and I should have been a grandchild that they spoiled, not an extra kid. They loved me and they did their best. My father, on the other hand, was kind of an idiot. He would never spend time with me, and when he graduated and later got married, I wasn't even an afterthought. The cool stuff about my grandparents, though, was all their stuff. My grandfather has a garage full of tools. He does all the repairs on their vehicles and around the house. My grandmother has antique kitchen gadgets that she taught me how to use. It was like growing up in a time machine. My grandfather helped me build my first desktop. He can do anything with his hands. He also taught me how to take care of his old car. He and my grandmother have regular cars, but he also has an old muscle car. It would not be out of place in the Fast and Furious movies. I'm getting married this summer, and my grandparents decided to gift me that old car. He always said he would give it to my father, but he changed his mind. I asked my grandfather what I could do with the car. He said it was 100% mine. I could do whatever I wanted. Talked to my fiance. He said that it was a beautiful collector's item, but not really something we could afford to keep. We decided we're going to have our wedding pictures taken with the car, and then we're going to sell it. We've talked to places that sell these cars, and we'll get enough for a good down payment on a house. My father found out that I got the car, and he was mad. He says it was supposed to go to him, and he was going to keep it to give to his son. I said that if he got it appraised, I would give him the right to buy it. He got it appraised. He could afford it, but not easily. He says I'm being a witch and holding his past behavior against him. No kidding, Sherlock. He abandoned me, and now he wants me to play nice. My fiance says we should find a compromise because my father wants to keep the car in the family. I'm going to be honest. I don't want my father or my half-brother to get this car. I would rather sell it to a stranger. My grandparents loved the idea of wedding pictures with the car and then knowing that they helped us buy a house. My grandfather said it was fate that he kept the car and never let my father drive it. I have driven it. It scares me. I like my Nissan Leaf. I feel like a jerk for keeping my father from getting the car. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. And listen to your grandfather about him being glad he didn't give it to your father. Listen hard, and then listen again. Also, don't trust your father's appraisal. Get a second one, at least. I wouldn't put it past him to give you a lowball number. By the way, you aren't the only one holding him responsible for his past behavior. Your grandfather is too. Your father's fussing at you rather than at his father, only because you're easier to intimidate. It's not your father's car. It was your grandfather's and he gave it to you. They're happy with what you plan to do with it. That's all that matters. But unfortunately, sometimes karma comes back with a vengeance. Your piece of crap father has no say in what your grandfather does with the car. He gave it to you and explicitly said to do what you want. Not only that, but he supports your decision. I'm not even going to waste my time outlining all the ways your father's an idiot, but I think you've made that abundantly clear. Don't worry about what he thinks. Congratulations on your upcoming wedding.